And here we go. Okay. So we're learning, let's bring up the text. We're learning a Sicha, it's a famous Sicha of the Rebbe, on this week's Parsha. Okay, this coming week will be the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, which is the fifth Rebbe Chabad, the father of the previous Rebbe and the grandfather of the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe's wife. So the Sicha starts, the Rebbe says, Tzivul Enagin is to sing the Mimer song, and the Rebbe said the Mimer of Hu Oimed Alehem. Okay, this is an amazing Mimer which talks about the ideas of Avram enabling the angels to eat. So the Rebbe says like this: Hasipur Haba. The Rebbe starts talking after the Mimer. The Rebbe said to sing the song Ani Mamim of the belief in Mashiach. So the Rebbe says like this: Hasipur Haba, the story I'm going to tell now. Kfar Siparti Pam, I've told it before. Aval Hayosh Hayoim Hu Yoim Halaydasai. This Shabbos, meaning the 20th of Mar Cheshvan, which is the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, fell out on Shabbos. Parshas Vayeira of the year 1952, Tavshin Yud Gimel. Because today is the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, Aviv Shal Kvoiktus Marachami Admer, the father-in-law of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Esaper Esasipur Pam Nesepes, I will tell the story again. HaRebbe Nishmas Eiden, the Rebbe Rashab, his soul in heaven, Nohigli Kones Midei Shana B'Yom Ha'Leidasai Chaf Mar Cheshvan, he had a custom to enter on his birthday, the 20th of Mar Cheshvan. El Ziknoi Kvoi Kedushas Admor HaTzemach Tzedek. He would go into his grandfather, which was the third Rebbe Chabad, the Tzemach Tzedek. He would go in there for a blessing. To ask for a blessing from his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, on his birthday, which is a custom. The Rebbe says it's possible that this wasn't a unique, so to say, custom of the Rebbe Rashab. It's very possible this was also a custom of the other grandchildren of the Rebbe Rashab. Oh, sorry, of the Tzemach Tzedek. One time, when the Rebbe Nishmaseid and the Rebbe Rashab went into his grandfather for the birthday when he was 4 or 5 years old, Shekena Rebbe Nishmaseid Noiled B'Shnas Tofresh Chof Aleph. The Rebbe Rashab was born in the year 5621, which would be 1860. Be'ilu, at the end of 1860. Be'ilu B'Nisan Tofresh Chavav, and on 5626 in the month of Nisan before Pesach, which would be 1866 already. Nistalaka Tzemach Tzedek, the Tzemach Tzedek, his grandfather passed away. So he was only 5 years alive with the Tzemach Tzedek. So one year he goes into his grandfather, and Paritz Bechi, he breaks out crying when he walks in to get a blessing for his birthday. Shalu Tzemach Tzedek Madua Hinach Baicha. Tzemach Tzedek asked him, why are you crying? So the Rebbe Rashab responds to his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek. He learned this week or now in the Chumash, because it was around his parsha, around his birthday. We heard people talking. This week's parsha, it says that God revealed himself to Avram, which is Hasipur Ira B'Shvua, the Parshas Vayeira. This story happened that Avram, that we talk about the revelation of God to Avram after the circumcision, happens around his birthday. So either he learned about it in school or he heard conversation about it. That's why he's crying. Why does God reveal himself to Avram and doesn't reveal himself to him, to the Rebbe Rashab? This young boy is crying. He wants revelation of godliness. But Tzemach Tzedek responds to his grandson. And this is a Rebbe, the third Rebbe, who he himself is the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe Chabad, responding to the future Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab. But he's a boy now. So his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, said like this: Kasha Yehudi, when a Jew, and Nusach Sheni, another version is Yehudi Tzaddik, a Jew who's righteous. Ben Tishim V'teisha Shonim, at the age of 99. Yes, Barbara.
I just wanted to let you know, there's a message from Janice that the link won't open on YouTube, I guess.
Let's see, hold on. Not sure, maybe she's trying the wrong link, but let me try and see. Hold on, let me see if it's on. No, it's streaming. I'm doing too many things at one time, and I think I maybe mixing up the links, but hold on. I think this link went out. No, it's working. Tell her to try. Make sure to tell her to try the link for the Sicha class, not the link for the Halacha class. If you could answer her, please, Barbara. I see it's on over here.
Okay, I'll send her a message.
Thank you. So the Rebbe says like this. So when a Rebbe who is 99 years, when a tzaddik, a righteous person, a Jew, 99 years old, Machlit makes the decision, to circumcise himself. So he says, Roihu Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yirei Lav. Then that makes the person worthy that God should reveal himself to him. So what makes a person worthy for revelation is the fact that Avraham Avinu, and especially Avram, who he was, circumcised himself at the age of 99. Tshuva Tzemach Tzedek, the respond to the Tzemach Tzedek, when he heard the respond that the reason why Hashem revealed himself to Avram is because he circumcised himself, so he earned it, so to say. That made sense to the young future Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab, and he stopped crying. That's the story. The Rebbe wants to analyze this story. Although this is the story of a young child, he was under the age of 13. He didn't even come to the age of education. Nevertheless, from this story, even though it's seemingly one could say, how could I learn a lesson from a story that happened with a Rebbe and a child? But the Rebbe says, nevertheless, this story is going to be a lesson for us to understand, to enable us to understand better in how we could serve Hashem. Because if the story was just a child's story, the story wouldn't have gone past the story. The very fact that the Rebbe Rashab felt the need to tell the story over to his son, the future Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe, the previous Rebbe. But Rebbe Chazir al Tzipur B'chtei Shifarsimu Ba'olam, and then his son, the previous Rebbe, told over the story to be publicized. It's not just a story of something that happened. It's a story that we're supposed to learn a lesson. The previous Rebbe didn't say anything just for the sake of saying it. If he said it, it's because he's trying to teach the Hasidim and the Jewish people a lesson. The Rebbe says more specifically. There's two general ideas we can learn from the story. We can learn from the question of the Rebbe where he cries his grandfather, why doesn't God reveal himself to this young child like he revealed himself to Avram? And the answer of the Tzemach Tzedek, that Avram was worthy of the revelation because he circumcised himself at 99 years old. And we could learn a lesson both from the desire, the crying of this child, and from the response of his grandfather, the Rebbe. Siftal, the Rebbe continues. And what could we learn from the crying of pain that the Rebbe Rashab as a child had? Why doesn't God reveal himself to him like he revealed himself to Avram? So the lesson is Kol Echad V'Echad B'nei Yisrael. It's a lesson to every single Jewish person. Notwithstanding in any situation that you are, even if you haven't reached the level of education, we're not talking about an age, You don't have the information, the das, the understanding, the knowledge to start a proper Jewish education. Not only can you not open a book yourself to understand, your level of knowledge is so little that you can't even sit in a class to receive from someone else because you don't have the tools, the basic tools to take in the education. We're not talking about because you're not smart. We're talking about you haven't been educated yet in Judaism. And like the Rebbe would say, it has nothing to do, like he's going to say now, with how physically old you are. It could be that you start your journey in Jewish education later in your life. And where we're standing now at 50, 60, 70, 100 years old, you're a child when it comes to your journey in beginning to study Torah. What does it mean that a person comes to the age of education where you could start being educated? Why do we wait? Why don't we sit down with the 1-year-old and start teaching him or her deep ideas? Because they're not ready to listen to these ideas. The Torah says when a child reaches the age of chinuch, we start educating them, and we start slowly with more basic ideas until the child is ready at the age of an older age to start learning Talmud and Halakha, etc. The Rebbe continues, it's possible. If he looks at his birth certificate, he's an adult. But spiritually, he's still a child, or she. He or she has not even begun not even holding the level of being ready to be educated. As my father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, used to say, how do we understand Jewish years? What does it mean? I'm so old and so many years old. We don't look at the passport to see how old this person is. A person could be on the passport and the birth certificate 45 years old, a lawyer, a successful business person, a person very knowledgeable about other things. But when it comes to Jewish education, that person's a child, not even the age of ready to be educated. We don't look at the darkon. The darkon is the passport. According to the passport, the person is an old person. He was born or she was born many years ago. On the passport, he could be considered an old Jew. But what do we really consider this person? The person now has zero education, zero knowledge of what it means to be a Jew. That's the true years of a Jew. The spiritual years of this person, in this person's ability to perform Torah mitzvahs, just like a child who's uneducated can't do certain things, so too this person's not ready to do certain things. The Rebbe says this spiritually, this person who could on his passport, her passport, be many years, could be an adult in a suit and tie, could be like a child playing under the table with toys. A kleine Kind, a small child, that's playing under the table. Nevertheless, the Rebbe says, the person may say, how could I learn from the Rebbe Rashab? The Rebbe Rashab comes and demands and cries, why doesn't Hashem reveal himself to him? The Rebbe says that even if from this we see that the Rebbe Rashab was a young child, under the age, he was 4 or 5, he was mamish a child, before the years of education. Nevertheless, he cried, he wanted revelations. The Rebbe says that applies to everyone. Even if you're spiritually a child, in knowledge and in education, and in preparing and to be accustomed to living as a Jew, you're like a child playing under the table with toys. Nevertheless, even he or she, litvaya could demand, like a child crying and demand. The sign that the Rebbe Rashab cried is because it mattered, it bothered. One of the reasons a person cries is because your mind is overwhelmed. Maisre means from the word an abundance of information. The mind is your brain is an override, and therefore causes a person to cry. Therefore, happy things make you cry, sad things make you cry, painful things make you cry. You can't handle the situation. You're overwhelmed with emotion, either positive or negative. It's too much for the person to comprehend. So the person cries. The brain can't handle it. So it expresses itself when you start crying. And what could you demand from Hashem in a way of crying that it bothers you so much, that it overwhelms you to the point of tears? The God, you want God to reveal himself to you. Just like he revealed himself to our father Avraham. The Rebbe continues. Yes, Tarakin, even more than that. We see from this story that the Rebbe cried that God doesn't reveal himself to him. The way God revealed himself, unlike the other times he revealed himself. We have other levels, we have other talks of descriptions of revelation from God to Avram, but he cries about this specific revelation. From this we learn. That not just that that every single Jew is empowered. That how should God reveal himself? Yirei love. That high revelation that Avram had after he'd circumcised himself, where it says until that point Avram couldn't stand in the presence of God's revelation because of the foreskin. Once he circumcised himself, he was a vessel to be able to take in the great revelation of godliness. This was a great level of revelation that Havaya, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the higher name of Hashem, reveals himself to Avram of Parshas Vayeira. Nevertheless, the Rebbe Rashab cries, he wants that level of revelation. I don't want a small level of revelation, a little bit of revelation. I want the full revelation, and so much so that he cries. And the Rebbe says every Jew could demand that, no matter how simple, even if you're on the level of a child. The Rebbe adds, what does it mean, the level of revelation that Avram had after the circumcision? We find that God revealed himself to Avram also in the name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. It's not the level of revelation that Avram had after the circumcision. Shahaisa, that then he elevated to higher level, and therefore he received a greater revelation. How do we find this? Because one of the things that happened right before the circumcision, and how God revealed himself after the circumcision, was to Avraham, his new name. He was no longer Avram without the hey. He was already upgraded to the new name, to the higher name of Avraham. He was given this hey because he did the mitzvah of circumcision. And Isa B'Gemara, the Talmud teaches us, Ksiv Avram v'Ksiv Avraham. It says both. We find that Avram was first called Avram, and then he's called Abraham. B'tchila, initially, Himlichu HaKadosh Baruch Hu HaMasayim v'Arbayim v'Shalosh Eivarim. Up until that point, Avram was in control of 243 of his limbs. He knew not to touch this, not to walk there. There are certain things he was in control of. Almost all the functionalities of his body, the two which were represented by the 243. A person has 245. A man. When he became Avraham, he's given an extra hay. On top of the 43 makes 48. And on all his 45 limbs, he's in control. What are those extra 45 limbs? Shnei Einayim, Shnei Oznayim, V'roish HaGoyot. He becomes on his eyes, his ears, and he Roish HaGoyot, I think, means to bring either to his mouth, or I think it's talking about his private parts. Shebetchila hemlichu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ha'Ibar V'Shem B'Rishusei Lizar Ma'Aveira. First, he was able to be controlled on the things that a person is in control of. But a person can't control what you see and what you hear. If you're walking by something, you see something, you see it. You can't control. If you're looking, if you're walking by someone and someone says something, you listen. You can't control what you hear. If a person passes something and their eyes are open, you're going to see it. If you pass by in a conversation, you're going to hear it. But when he circumcised himself, he has control of everything. Avram is in control of what he looks at and what he hears, another thing. The things that were seemingly out of his control, he becomes control of. He becomes total dominant of his entire being. The idea is, Avram, when he just starts his avodah, he starts his service of God, his growth. He only was in control of the parts of his body that naturally, there's an ability that you could have control. There's certain things that are out of your control. You can't control if you're looking at something not to see it, or if you're standing in the vicinity of something not to hear it. But he was able to reach a level through the elevation of Avraham, the additional 5, the hay, because he completed the highest level he could reach. He was gifted something that's out of a person's control. It's not in a person's control to work on themselves, not to see something. If the Baruch Hashem are blessed with vision, or not to hear something, if they're Baruch Hashem blessed with the ability to hear. He was able to reach the highest level that he could reach. He elevated himself to complete anything which was in the possibility that he had to work on himself. He worked on himself. So then he was gifted from above, something that's out of a person's control. Things that a person naturally on their own cannot reach. Then Avram had ownership and in control even on the parts of himself. Naturally. Most people, aside for Avram, aside for someone who's been gifted this gift of control of these parts of your body, have no ability to control these things. You could control if you don't want to go somewhere. And if you don't go there, you won't see it. Not to turn something on, not to look. But if you are in a place that's in front of you, you're going to see it unless your eyes are closed. You don't have to go to a place where there's talk or sound of things you don't want to listen to. But in order to do that, you can't go to that place where you put in earplugs. But you don't have control to stop your hearing from listening to it. For instance, if you're standing and having a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden the person starts talking lashon hara, your ears don't turn off. Or if you're standing somewhere and someone all of a sudden is in front of you inappropriate, your eyes don't shut off. You could look away, you could close your eyes, you could walk away. You don't have control, but your eyes are going to see if you stand there. From this is understood. So the fact that he received this gift, he was elevated to the level that he's Avraham with the hay. Now he's elevated to Avraham. So therefore, when he has a revelation at that level, God reveals himself to the level of Avram. So Avram now is at a much higher level. The revelation's higher. Not just that Avram could accept the revelation higher, but the revelation itself is higher. He's revealed. He has revelations that are much higher than the levels of revelation before that point. Nevertheless, the Rebbe says, notwithstanding of all of this revelation that Avram has, seemingly a child like the Rebbe Rashab, who's a smart child, should say this is out of my league. This revelation that he has after circumcision, and his name gets boosted up in a tremendous upgrade to Avraham, meaning now he's in full control, even of the things that are naturally not in his control. Nevertheless, the Rebbe says that the fact that the Rebbe Rashab tells the story over to his son, the previous Rebbe, and the previous Rebbe told the story, revealed the story, and the Rebbe is telling it now in 1952, means it's a story, not just something that happened. There's a lesson, and the lesson is that every single Jew, called Yehudi, again, even if this person spiritually, how could you ask for such a revelation? You're not even ready to be educated. You can't even open up a Shulchan Aruch, a book of code of law, and try to understand the laws. You could barely pay attention to what's happening in this shul. And all of a sudden you're crying because you want the revelation of Avram. The Rebbe says, yes, you can. Lidresh, to demand, v'litvaya, and to request. Shakadosh Baruch Hu yirei love. You want God to reveal himself to you. Kivan shenir Avram b'mamadei matzavi de Avram shalachim mitzvah milah. Just as he revealed himself to Avram after Avram accomplished everything he accomplished in his own life, including circumcision, including being gifted by God, his abilities to have full control of his body. So that's the lesson of the first part of the story. Then the fact that the Rebbe Rashab, notwithstanding of the story, of the difference, cried and demands that he should have the revelation like Avram has, means that every Jew could demand that no matter where you're holding, even if you're a child, spiritually playing under the table with toys. And then we have to also take the lesson from the reply, from the response his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek told to the Rebbe Rashab. Shal Tzemach Tzedek al Rebbe Nishma Seder. Shizkaluse shakadosh baruch hu Avraham Avinu. That the revelation that God gave to Avram, Dafka, why only he got the revelation? Is because he recognized and understood he must circumcise himself. What does this mean? Yes, every Jew, no matter who that Jew is, he or she, no matter what level of education they're holding, can demand that Hashem reveals himself like he revealed to Avram. Mikol makom, there's a condition. You need to prepare yourself, not in knowledge, but in acceptance. You must circumcise, cut off things that are no longer, you have to disconnect from things, from the foreskin of your life. Claimer, meaning to say, yes, a Jew has all these qualities, and even a Jew who's, like we said at the beginning of his or her education, has the right to demand that. If you don't have it actually, you have it potentially. Potentially. Every single Jew can reach the darkest to the highest level, in their service. Like we said, Vayeira, God should reveal himself to. Medrash, like the Rebbe quotes this Medrash many times. That every single Jewish person must say, is obligated to say, when will my actions come to the level of the actions of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? So says the Medrash. A person has to say, Chayiv. Chayiv means a person's obligated to say, to wonder, when will I reach the level of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? The fact that you're obligated to wonder, that means you can. V'lahayir, the Rebbe says. Shegam ized dechashiv Avram b'yachad im Yitzchak b'Yaakov. Mukach shakavani hi la'Avram b'madrigas yishlachim mitzvus milah. The very fact that the Medrash includes Avram with Yitzchak and Yaakov, it means we're talking about Avram the way he was like Yitzchak and Yaakov, both of them circumcised. Alpha became, so although a person could demand that and should demand that of himself or herself, I love the das, but you have to know. There's something you have to do. You must circumcise yourself. We're going to see what that means. Yisayim is more than this, the Rebbe says. Afilu Eila mi bnei Yisrael, even these people. Hold on a second. Asher ma'ila sa'amuretz kayom esetzlaim, le'rak b'koyach el-gam b'poyel. Even if we're talking about a Jew who has reached high levels, not just in potential, but actually. Kloimer hatzadikim, even if you're talking about a righteous person. Hasholtim gam alei veirem shv'derach hatev alei titachin ashlit alem. Even the tzaddik who reached the level that they were able to control the parts of their body that nature doesn't allow. For instance, like we said before, what you see and what you hear. Even the righteous person who reached Avraham Avinu. After Milah, that he was able to have control of even his eyes and his ears. And we have a story about the Rebbe Rashab. Yedua Sipur when he was older, when he became a Rebbe already. Yedua Sipur Oidis Admir Merashab, the story of the Rebbe Rashab, Nishmas Eden, Asher. Asher, he says, Pam his oinen. He once complained. He doesn't hear in one ear. The Rebbe Rashab stopped hearing in one ear. When he started to try to figure out, what happened to his hearing in that one ear. No, they found out, maybe they asked him what's going on, what happened, anything interesting. That Shabbos, V'shasha Amr, Maimer Chassidus, when he was saying the Chassidic discourse, there were other people outside the room that were talking. That was disturbing him. He was losing concentration, let's say, from the conversation outside. And the Rebbe Rashab felt responsible. What is his responsibility? That the Rebbe Rashab's job is to teach Chassidus. He just turned off his hearing because he was in control of it. That his ear that was facing the room where the noise was coming from, that was disturbing him, he just shut it off because he was in control of his ears. We find this in another discourse, that there were certain righteous people. They ate food like everyone else ate food, but they didn't taste the taste of food. Why? Because their godly soul was so in control of their body that their godly soul didn't want to taste physical taste. Yes, you have to eat the food for the nourishment and for the vitamins and for all the benefits of food, but who says you have to taste it? So there's certain tzaddikim who didn't taste the food. The Alter Rebbe was one of those. The famous story of the Alter Rebbe with the kugel, the cholent, the soup, whatever it was, that was full of salt. No one could eat it. The Alter Rebbe ate it. He had no taste. He didn't taste the salt. There was other tzaddikim who didn't see or hear what they didn't want to. Because the godly soul wouldn't allow them to. And this is how the godly soul is in control, even while it's in the body, where the body, it does what it does and it sees things. The godly soul could turn away, could be upset, could be hurt by what you're looking at or listening to. But the tzaddik turns off his ears, closes his eyes. I don't know if the Rebbe is going to say the story soon of Rebbe Nachman Chernobyl. The Rebbe says the story. Who was a big tzaddik in the times of the Alter Rebbe, who walked in on Shabbos to a room and didn't see the light. And they found out because a non-Jew turned the light on Shabbos, and he didn't see light that was turned on Shabbos, even if it was done by the non-Jew. It wasn't 100% in accordance of halacha. With Hamadavar, the Fisha calls man shikayemis mitziyusei shel arla. So what's the reason? What does it mean that a person has to circumcise themselves? As long as the person has a foreskin, even if it's the most, not a thick foreskin, a thin foreskin. This could lead a person astray. A person has to totally disconnect himself from any kind of physical things. This is why the Tzemach Tzedek said, when a tzaddik, righteous, 99 years old, makes a decision that you have to circumcise yourself. Then God's worthy of showing himself to you. The Rebbe explains. This that it says in the Mishnah, that someone who reaches the age of 100, it's as if you died and totally nullified from the world. Seemingly, it doesn't make sense. The Mishnah starts off when a child's 5. When you're 5, you learn Chumash. When you're 10, you learn Mishnah. When you're 15, you learn Talmud. When you're 18, you get married. 20. The Mishnah lists off all the accomplishments, next things you should start doing when you reach age. And says 100 is if you died and no longer live. That's not positive information. That's if you're 99 years old, you won't feel good reading that, right? As if I don't exist anymore. So each one of the ages that we discuss in the Mishnah up until the age of 100 are all positive things, of things that a person should do. When you turn 5, start learning Torah. Then Eser Shanim L'Mishnah, when you're 10, start learning Mishnah. Yud Gimel, when you turn 13, you become Bar Mitzvah. Ma'ayara, what's the lesson a person's supposed to learn? That when you turn 100, as if you're dead and you're nullified, you don't exist. The answer is, in Yanishal Ben Meir, B'Avodah Sadam, what does this mean in our service? Hu Shleimus Habirur. It's you've reached such a high level of completion. 100 is 10 times 10. You refined all your 10 strengths, including your intellectual. We learn in the Sfiras Omer that 7 times 7 is 48. That's the only the midos. But here you're doing all 10, and all 10 times 10, every component within the 10 midos, and the 3 intellectual. Not just all 10, but how each 10 are made up of 10. That makes you 100. You're a complete person. You totally dominate your entire character and personality, including intellectual. 10 times 10, which is 100. In a positive way. What does it mean as if you're dead, you passed away, no longer nullified from this world? You're no longer connected to the nastiness of this world, to the physicality of this world. There's nothing left for you to be concerned about. It's as if you don't have an evil inclination. This is what the Tzemach Tzedek was saying to his grandson. Listen to this. That Yehudi, you have a Jew, like Avraham, who's 99 years old. When he's 100, when he returned 100, he's already complete. He doesn't have to be concerned that maybe the foreskin is going to lead him astray. We said it's as if he doesn't have Yetzer Hara anymore. No more evil inclination. But now you're 99. You're 1 year away from completion. On the Mishu Adayin Ventisha Vitesha. You still haven't completed the process. Yes, you're 1 year away, 1 week away. You haven't yet reached 100. So you may think, okay, whatever, I'll push through. I have to make an operation. I have to cut off my foreskin. I have to do a whole big tadaram just because I have 99% I've covered. The last little percent, because even then there's a concern that maybe something after something will bring you astray. It's not just talking about a concept. It's talking about the person themselves could fall. And if you're not going to circumcise yourself, you're not going to be. What the Rebbe is working on in a person is, you want revelation, you have to disconnect certain parts of yourself. You don't have to become Einstein in Torah. You don't have to become even a child that's holding education. But you have to recognize that you have to circumcise the foreskin of yourself. Even if you're 99, that's what the Rebbe says. At 99, he realized. He could have said to God, just wait a few more months and I'll be 100. It won't be a concern anymore. And if you don't, even at 99, you could fall all the way to the lowest levels. It's only the person who makes the decision. Even when you're in the highest level, you're 99% complete. You're 99 years old. It's the recognition, the knowing, the idea that you're not trusting yourself. You know that you're so careful that even at 99 years old, you recognize you have to circumcise yourself. Then you're worthy of the revelation of godliness. When a person is chadur bebitul klali, you have so through and through with nullification about yourself, that you know, and through this nullification you recognize, I have to circumcise, I have to cut certain things out of my routine, out of who I am. Where does a person know this about themselves? Is the recognition, the feeling, I'm not perfect. If I was perfect, there'd be nothing to circumcise. No matter what, no matter how great I think I am, I still need a change. Erbeis, the Rebbe says in Yiddish, as a zoivi is toignit, the way I am is no good. When I still have to be changed. That is the preparation. Lehigia to reach the dargis al yeni yeser to higher levels. Vayeira love Havaya, that God reveals Himself to you. That's the qualification. Not how smart you are, how educated you are. It's the recognition of the need and the commitment to the need of change. And then you become now when you reach that level, Avraham, you get elevated to that level like Avraham. Because then, and the sign is when you become full control, on all your senses. Even the senses that are officially out of your control. Person can say, well, I'm out of control. What do you want from me? I was sitting on the train, someone was talking, I heard nastiness or something negative. I saw something. What do you want? I was standing there. I turned to right away, but I saw it right away. Not just on your body, but you come in control of your space of influence. As we said before, the Maimer Oida Sadikim, about the Rebbe said about the Tzadikim in the Hasidic discourse before the talk, that when they refine themselves, they affect others. When you reach full refinement, it doesn't stay isolated. It's contagious. So too over here. When you become in control of your senses, you elevate to the level of Avraham. Then you become in control of your place of influence. All the things that need you and you need them. To serve God. It's going to affect your children in a positive way. It's going to affect your health in a positive way. It's going to affect your parnas in a positive way. And then they should all be in a way of abundance because it's all part of who you are in your service of Hashem. Thank you very much. It could be the quality of the audio wasn't so good. I had to run off my laptop. There was a power shortage in the office, so the computer didn't go on in time. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining. Good Shabbos. And for those who come to Shabbos class, we have a fascinating story of the Baal Shem Tov we're going to share in honor of Janet, who inspired the story, and for Refuah Shalema for her. Laila Tov and good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.